this temple was looking very mystical. Shyamasundar had put a purple carpet, and he had used red oak beams from California, so it was all curved. And the deities were there, incense. So Shyamasundar wanted the temple to look like a Buddhist cave. Prabhupada sat on the Vyasa and he started looking at everyone's eyes. And when I caught his glance, I became so surprised. And I could see in his glance that this personality knows me much better than I do. And it's not from that life. And it was so much compassion in his eyes. It was like he knew our suffering, he knew our questioning, but he had the solution. So it was extremely powerful. And I didn't know why. I felt some tears coming. Then I was wondering why these tears, you know. That was so powerful, and I understood it was because of his compassion. So he sat on the Vyasa, he gave a lecture, and amazingly, in his lecture he answered all the questions we had without us asking anything. It was in Russell Square, and it was winter, so we had big coats, and we were just maybe 4 of us, no more. And I was just walking on the right side of Prabhupada, and all of a sudden he stopped, and he became very intense. He looked at me very deeply, and I thought, he's going to say it, that mystical sentence, he's going to say it. So I was looking at him also, and it was for a few long seconds, you know. And then he opened his mouth, and I thought, that's it, I will know he's my spiritual master. And then he said, are you cold? And then I looked at him very disappointed, and he was playing with us. And I told him, no, Srila Prabhupada, I'm not cold. And every day it was the same. Is he our spiritual master? Is it a bona fide process, a bona fide tradition? Again, we were told to go to Srila Prabhupada's room. And then Srila Prabhupada was very charming, and he came and he asked me, what is your name? And then I was thinking I couldn't take part in the initiation. So I told him, Srila Prabhupada, I have no name. So Prabhupada looked puzzled, you know, and he started to laugh. And then he said, you don't like the name your parents gave you? And he had a big smile, meaning, I will give you a name you are going to like. And actually he did, because in the temple at that time, there was one devotee I particularly loved. It was Yamuna Devi. And there was a devotee also who was like a big brother to us. We were doing Harinam all day practically, and at night, where a lot of people were drunk, and he was protecting us like a big brother, Trivikram, now Swami. And then when I received my initiation letter, Srila Prabhupada says, my dear daughter, Mandakini, Devi, I'm very glad, happy to accept you as my initiated disciple. Please, and I'm also very happy that you are appreciating the bliss of Krishna consciousness. And then he said, your name is Mandakini, it's the name of a river, the river Ganges. And I thought, oh, like Yamuna, I got the name of a river. And then he went on explaining that Lord Vamanadev made a little hole in the universe. When he became gigantic, his name was Trivikram, and then the Mandakini fell on the Earth planet. So he connected me with the devotees I really appreciated so much at the time. And I understood later that Prabhupada knew, my wish for that name. And somebody asked Srila Prabhupada, do you know everything? And Srila Prabhupada said, no, I just know what Krishna wants me to know. I got the service of helping Yamuna Devi in the Pujari room, although I had absolutely no qualification. And that service actually helped me to get rid of most my impersonalism. And during that service, I also learned how to cook for Krishna. And I heard that Srila Prabhupada said, I would like to go to the spiritual world to eat loglu and kachoris. So I became very enthusiastic to learn these two preparations. We had a lot of Bengali ladies coming to London Temple, and they taught me how to do peas, kachori. They taught me loglu and so on. So one time in London, Prabhupada came, and he was not feeling so well. Unfortunately, I don't have the date in mind. And somehow or other, Himavati was supposed to cook for him, but she declined. And I was asked to cook for him. So every day, I used to do the basic. Prabhupada wanted in his brass cooker, he wanted his dal, his rice, 2 sabji, 1 dry, 1 wet, and anything else we could do. Bitter melon, but we could add extra preparation. So I was doing everything I learned from the Indian ladies. And one time I made kachoris. So I brought the plate to Srila Prabhupada in his room. And when I came in the room, his eyes became very, very big. And in his eyes, I could see the eyes of the little kid he was in Calcutta, putting kachoris in his pockets. And he says, Mandakini, you made kachoris? And I said, I tried, Srila Prabhupada. And then he obviously he was pleased, but I had no word, I had no feedback. He stayed for about 1 month. And I was wondering, does Srila Prabhupada like it or not? There is no feedback. But the last day, he was going to fly next day. I think it was Shruti Kirti, brought a big list. And he said, Srila Prabhupada wants you to cook all this for the plane. And I saw all the special preparation I had been making. So in this way I was thinking, the spiritual master is actually playing with the disciple to increase the love the disciple has for the spiritual master. And he doesn't keep this love. He's giving this love to his spiritual master and up to the disciplic succession, up to Krishna. It was in the same temple in London. Prabhupada had shown Yamuna very simple worship as in Vrindavan, and in Los Angeles, in New Dwarka. It was a little different mood. And one of the first sannyasi we saw came to London, and we did simple worship. Krishna was a person. He was the best friend. So it was not in awe and reverence. It was more spontaneous, and when that sannyasi came, he said, "Oh, you have to change that deity worship. It's really sentimental. You have to be more in awe and reverence." And I really didn't want to change. I told him that's the way Yamuna showed me. That's the way Prabhupada showed her. We shouldn't change. But there was such a pressure from all the temple president and everybody. I resisted a long time. But after some time, I thought maybe it's better to change. Also, he was saying, the way I show you will be more devotion to your spiritual master. You have to start with the spiritual master, then you offer all the paraphernalia to Krishna. So in the end, I had to be obedient. Then I wrote to Srila Prabhupada. And then Srila Prabhupada was displeased. In the letter he wrote that once you have established a standard to worship the deities, you shouldn't change. And so he was chastising, not in an angry mood, but chastising. But then it was softened by very kind words after. And he said, "But I understand that you wanted to serve better your spiritual master, to increase your service to your spiritual master. So this is all right." So that was showing me that even if Srila Prabhupada chastises, he shows great kindness. And it showed me that I should have resisted more, like that. Something comes to mind also in the same place in London. Srila Prabhupada was not there, and one day I was doing an article alone, and we had one one guest who came regularly. He had very heavy mental difficulties, and that time he came in the room. And he started being there. He had flowers he had gathered from the cemetery. And he looked not in a good state that day. And he threw the flowers on the altar. And I thought what to do, you know. But anyway, I went down to clean the dishes. And all of a sudden I heard big noise. So I rushed upstairs, and he had actually jumped on the deities, and they were on the floor, lying on the floor. Srimati Radharani's finger or hand was not in good state, so it was like a catastrophe. So I called, and everybody came, and they took care of the boy, and we brought the deities in Srila Prabhupada's room. So it was like a tragedy, and Prabhupada was so shocked and displeased. And at that time, I shouldn't have gone, I should have stayed, but he didn't chastise me directly. He chastised the temple president at that time. And by Krishna's grace, a sculptor came, and he fixed everything very nicely. And by this service, he became Mahavishnu Swami. But when Prabhupada came to London, shortly after that, the deities were resting, but he asked, he was very grave, and he asked to see the deities, to open the curtain. And at that time we had taken the vases out, to make them fresh for when they would wake up. But Prabhupada said, why no vases for the deities? Like that. So it showed me how concerned he was, that definitely for Srila Prabhupada, Krishna was not only a murti, Krishna was really present in his form, you know. And if something terrible happened, he was extremely concerned, and he wanted to know if the consciousness of the devotees was right. It was in 76. Prabhupada was sick, and he decided to cancel the trip to New Mayapur, to France from London. And then our leader, Bhagavan Das, said, I will go to London and I will get Srila Prabhupada. But I felt very disobedient. I felt, you will never get Prabhupada. I don't want to take the risk. So I just decided to go, no matter what, to London to see Srila Prabhupada. And I convinced another brahmacharini to come with me. Although the temple president, everybody was against it. So we took the boat. When we reached London, Prabhupada was gone to France. So it was a whole night trip. So we decided we'll go back on the boat. And then when we reached Paris, he had gone to New Mayapur. So we didn't sleep, so tired, exhausted, not in good consciousness. Then reaching New Mayapur, Rikesh Prabhu said, oh, Prabhupada wants you to make kachoris. And I went and I hardly knew my name anymore. I was so exhausted and not in good consciousness, having disobeyed everything. So I went and I did them. And then the servant came and said, Prabhupada didn't like your kachoris. And I could understand that's because of my consciousness. Like the spiritual master is not only testing the food, but he's testing the consciousness. And Prabhupada, they say next, do you want Mandakini to cook for you? Next, Prabhupada says, oh, she didn't do very well. You know, and I understood, yeah, that's my consciousness, is right, you know. So I learned from that. In London, Yamuna Devi was gone. And serving the Shishirada London Ishvara was so perfect. My consciousness was becoming cleaner of this Mayavadi philosophy. I could see Krishna was really a person. But then there was, in my heart, there was like a strong desire to help with the preaching. So we had a very sweet and funny relationship and exchanges with Srila Prabhupada when he was coming to London. And that shows actually how he would relate to very young lady devotees, to young girls. Prabhupada was often asking me, I did not want to get married at that time at all. So anytime there was a proposal, I will just put the worst sari in the world and put a face very, very sad, very grave, and people will leave me alone. And Prabhupada, when he used to come, he used to say, Mandakini, you're not married yet? And he used to laugh. And then he would say, you didn't find anybody good enough for you? And I would become all red, and he would laugh. And so one day we heard the most amazing thing, that Srila Prabhupada was in Moscow. And I remember becoming, I thought I was very proud of Srila Prabhupada. I thought he's so brave, because we had read so many books about what happened behind the Iron Curtain. How dangerous it is, even if you slightly say a word against Stalin, you would go to camp, to jail. And I thought Prabhupada is amazing. He's really abide, Charan, fearless at the lotus feet of Krishna. And I remember thinking, that's a country I will probably never go. And meanwhile, Prabhupada left Moscow, and then he came to Paris first, then he came to London. And I was doing some menial service for him. One devotee said, Mandakini, Prabhupada wants to see you. And I thought I made a mistake in my service, so I knocked. And Prabhupada said, come in. And I came, and he had a big, big smile. Shyamasundar was standing near him. And he says, come close. I offered my obeisances. He said, come closer. And then he looked at me with a beautiful smile. And I remember always in the same way. He talked to me in the way he would ask me to go and get some potatoes across the street. And he said, Mandakini, would you like to go to Moscow and to marry this boy, Anatoly? And by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, you can assist the mission there. And what I have to tell you is that before that, when that desire for spiritual life, before that, when that desire to take part in the preaching mission came in my heart, I'd read in one of Srila Prabhupada's purports that if the spiritual master is asking you to do a task a little difficult, and if you say yes immediately, you will make a lot of spiritual progress. So I was very young, I was 21 at the time. So I ran to Shri Shri Radhanandanishvara, and I knew they were person, real person, and they could help. So I prayed and I said, please, please, my dear Lord, can you arrange it? Can you make an arrangement so that Srila Prabhupada would ask me to do something a little difficult, but please, please remind me to say yes. And then when Srila Prabhupada asked about, would you go to Moscow and marry this boy, Anatoly? I was just shocked for half a second, but I remembered my prayer, and I looked at him and I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. And his smile became, like we say, oceanic. And he told Shyamasundar, now you arrange everything. So that was the beginning of that beautiful saga of going to Moscow. And Srila Prabhupada would ask, when we met, he would ask what's happening there. He would be very enlivened when I was telling him, but he wanted me to actually to marry Anatoly, who became Ananta Shanti Prabhu, and to get a residential permit. But somehow or other, the KGB knew about our mission and would never give the residential permit. The longest I went was 2 weeks, and the shorter visa I got was 2 days. And at one point, Srila Prabhupada said not to go anymore, because he said Europe is sure, and Moscow, it can be risky, it's not sure. So, but one realization I got from that, Prabhupada knew they wouldn't give the residential permit. But when he told me that, I was so attached to that mission. And I loved the people there, the spiritual seekers. They were ready to give up their lives, their health, their freedom, just for spiritual life. And so I told Srila Prabhupada, can I try another time? Maybe I will get the residential permit. And Srila Prabhupada was so kind as usual. And he says, he knew I wouldn't get. And when I went the last time, it became clear it was not time to go back, you know. But Prabhupada said, of course you can go back. Yeah, try, you know. Always kind, delicate, encouraging, never discouraging the devotees. Always encouraging the devotees. At the time, you know, we were quite fanatical. So when I met Ananta Shanti Prabhu, I told him, you know, Prabhu, actually sex life is only to have children. So he said, oh, Haribol. And then I had heard that, so I told him, and you know, in order to have children, we have to be pure devotees. You know, I was not mature. I was just 21, and having been a brahmacharini for almost 2 years, that's what I thought, you know. So, Haribol. But we had a very nice, sweet relationship. That was the mission of Srila Prabhupada. So we didn't really, you know, we were not like husband and wife, like intimate relationship like that. But we felt I was very happy. And it was really Prabhupada, you know, like Prabhupada was always present. So Ananta Shanti was a wonderful young boy. He was very educated. He had studied philosophy, and he knew also the philosophy from India before meeting Srila Prabhupada. He was speaking in English. So he took this mission very, very seriously. He met Srila Prabhupada only for 2 days. But Shyama Sundar said he never saw Prabhupada giving so much to one person. They talk about Vanashram Dharma. Anatoly then asked Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, in order to preach Krishna consciousness, should I become a pope? And Prabhupada laughed and said, it's not necessary. And then he asked Srila Prabhupada, before leaving, it would be good for me to have a Western wife. This is how it came to be. So what Ananta Shanti was doing, he would approach friends. You couldn't preach directly, you know, to people in the street. Would you like me to tell some of his preaching activities, how he was doing? So, for example, he had the Srimad Bhagavatam that I brought to Moscow with the help of Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. It was such an adventure. And he would sit on the table in a coffee in summer and open Srimad Bhagavatam at the pages with the pictures, the beautiful paintings. And people would be very attracted. They never saw such pictures. So they would say, what is that? Can you tell us? And he would say, sit down, I'm going to explain to you. So they would sit and police wouldn't see, you know. That was one way. Another way, when there was no books, devotees in Russia at that time had absolute faith in a prashadam. So he would dress very nicely. He would buy a bouquet of red roses. He will offer to Krishna. And then he will go out in the street and approach the people and tell them, smell this rose. At least you will get a human form of life. And police would come. What are you doing? What are you doing? He would say, today I'm in love and I want to share this love with everybody. So the police would laugh and he would carry on distributing the roses. Another thing he did, he made a scientific institute. He registered a scientific institute, because actually at that time, and still now, in the Soviet Union, science was God. They haven't had a university of atheism. So because it was a scientific institute, it got registered without any problem. So what was the goal of this institute? It was to test the power of Vedic mantra on plants, animals, and human beings. So when you would go into this institute, you would have a lot of green plants. You would have a few cats and dogs, and you would have a lot of devotees chanting Hare Krishna. That was the way he was actually doing his preaching mission. Another way, I always said not to be imitated by a brahmachari. He would dress very nicely and go to a place where young boys and girls were dancing. And soon enough, some girls would be interested. So he would say, after some time, he would tell them, "Would you come home? We can discuss more." And they would say, "Yes, I want to come." So they would go to the little flat he was sharing with his mother, and then he will preach from Srimad Bhagavatam. Also, a big international book fair was arranged in Moscow with the help of Gopal Krishna Goswami, Kirtiraj Prabhu, and for the first time all of Srila Prabhupada's books were at this international fair in Moscow. So that's the way Ananta Shanti would preach, and he would travel all over Russia as much as he could. And he was a very unusual personality. For example, he would say, I come on Monday at such time. He would come 2 or 3 days later. He would say, time is eternal. Then he would start preaching, talking about Bhagavad Gita, very, very powerfully for maybe 7 hours. And when people got used to that, they used to bring their sleeping beds, their prasadam while listening to the lecture. You know, he was very powerful. But then persecution started a few years later. What impressed me the most about Prabhupada was his complete selflessness, his infinite compassion, his complete dedication to helping the suffering souls, to helping humanity. And also the fact he had perfect knowledge. He had an answer for any problem. He had a remedy, not only for the personal problems of his disciple, but he had the perfect peace formula for the whole world. And his infinite kindness, complete knowledge, extreme kindness, mysticism. We could feel that wonderful mysticism. Actually, being near Srila Prabhupada, we could see that he was opening for us a little window on the spiritual world. The spiritual world, God became so real in Srila Prabhupada's presence. It was very possible to reach perfection. In the beginning, when I joined, just a month after I joined, I remember Tamal Krishna Goswami told me, Mandakini, in 3 years we are all going to become pure devotees. We were convinced just by following Srila Prabhupada, perfection will be very quickly attained.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, your mic is mute.
Hare Krishna. So a very, very inspirational and wonderful lecture by Mataji. So sorry for extending a little bit, but I thought the devotees should hear till last what Mataji was saying, that they had so much conviction in Srila Prabhupada that just in 3 years they were convinced that they will become pure devotees. And indeed it is so. So we will hear about the wonderful life of Mataji, although she described many things about her life, how she met Srila Prabhupada and all. So Her Grace Mandakini Mataji got initiated from Srila Prabhupada in 1970 when she was just beginning 21 years old or 20 years old, like that. So how Mataji came into contact with devotees? Actually, this is very interesting that all these devotees, wonderful devotees, were the young, frustrated generation of the foreign America and Paris. And when they were searching actually for spirituality, they were convinced that this material life is completely nuisance, and we are not going to do like our parents, like that. So where they were actually continuously searching for spirituality. And indeed, Mataji, here is, where is that? Just a second. Where is, yeah. So in 1968, Mataji with other devotees who were friends at that time, school friends, they took this study of ethnology. Ethnology means study of different human races, so that they could figure out something about spirituality at Sorbonne University. So they were interested in spirituality very much, and actually they were trying out different paths and so many things. Once Mataji was telling, a professor was teaching old Chinese philosophy, and then Mataji with her friend, she asked the professor, the teacher, very enthusiastically, "Oh, if you got a chance to go to Tibet or China and practice this philosophy in a monastery, what you are teaching, would you like to go?" So the teacher told, no, actually I'm just teaching for because it's my job, like that. So they were so disappointed by that people are saying so many things are not following. So now they were looking where to go, like where should we go? Should we go to Eskimos? Should we go to Africa? Should we go to China to search a spiritual master? They were in the search of a guide, like that. So there was a Indian sannyasi there who was, of course, Mayavadi. So they were hearing from him about impersonalism, and that Tattvam Asi, you are that. So they liked this very much, that you are that, and whole life you will be thinking you are that like that. So they were actually interesting. One day in when they were traveling in a bus, then they saw a devotee, and uh, that devotee actually looked at them and told them, "Are you interested in spirituality?" So Mataji and her friend told, "Yes, we are living for spirituality." So then he gave them invitation to come and meet their spiritual master, who was A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So they were very much interested, and he told them like about Srimad Bhagavatam and all. And they were all influenced by all this impersonalism. We want mukti and all. So it was like that. So once, as Mataji was telling, once they were invited to some place near Paris, they were invited to Sunday program, and they actually wanted to test whether this place or these devotees are really spiritual. So what they did, they actually they took some magical drug, that was LSD, which was considered to influence spiritual experiences. So they took that to test on the devotees. But as soon as they entered the kirtan hall, the kirtan was so wonderful and mesmerizing that they forgot everything about that, and they were convinced that that's yes, these people are actually spiritual. So then Mataji further went in 1969. The place, Bury Place at London, Mataji was telling, installation of Shishi Radha Landaneshwar. And at that time, when they were there, then Mataji saw Srila Prabhupada for the first time when they were paying obeisances. So then in 1970, Mataji received her initiation, and she was at that time helping Yamuna Mataji. All these things were told in the lecture of Mataji, how she was willing to take this name. Then in 1971, you can see at that time Mataji was telling she was 21-year-old. So Srila Prabhupada instructed her to go to Russia and marry Ananta Shanti Prabhu. So this was a very risky situation actually, because any foreigner comes to Russia, you know how difficult it was at that time. So still she was like, just we can see, just she read in the Bhagavatam and she prayed that she can follow this statement of Bhagavatam. And Krishna gave her opportunity and she followed also. So it was a very risky step, but she did without even seeing, knowing who is Ananta Shanti Prabhu like that. She went and got married to her, and they were preaching together, doing book distribution, organizing underground programs, and all that. And similarly, they were preaching, but gradually, as you know, the KGB got to know about this, and they banned her to come to Russia. And again, Anand Shanti Prabhu was left alone. So many incidences are there. Mataji mentioned wonderfully about Ananta Shanti Prabhu, how enthusiastically, how innovatedly he was inventing so many techniques to preach. So now Mataji is helped in other projects as well, Durban, South Africa, and Madhavind Puri Prabhu designed and built the temple. Mataji preached at there, and so many things. And our daughter was born to her, Gaurangi Mataji, and then returned to Paris, and then other work as a documentalist in French insurance company. So Mataji had very what we can say, changing steps in her Krishna consciousness. Then she met again the Russian devotees, and they were very happy, and you can imagine how much they would appreciate her like that. So simply like her whole life was like determined to serve Srila Prabhupada. She was so impressed by the characteristic of Srila Prabhupada's, and she appreciated. So Mataji is preaching like that, inspiring devotees by her incidences with Srila Prabhupada, and also by her wonderful examples, personal devotional service in her life. So thank you very much, devotees, for joining. We pray to all these wonderful disciples of Srila Prabhupada that we may also take this wonderful inspiration to serve in the mission of Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Grace, Mandakini Mataji ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Hare Krishna.